Friends, if you are in the mood for a super fun, colorful, and full of energy animated movie, then you absolutely need to check out Rio from 2011. If you want to watch this exciting adventure in English, make sure you like this video right now. And if you are visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe, because we bring you all the fascinating details, updates, and stories from the world of movies. Today's video is going to be a complete ride through the vibrant streets of Rio de Janeiro, and trust me, you're going to love every moment of it. In this video, we are going to talk all about the movie Rio. What exactly is this film? Why did it become such a massive hit? What makes it stand out from other animated movies? We'll go deep into every little detail. I will tell you where you can watch this film right now, whether it's available on a popular OTT platform, or if it's playing on any satellite channel. So if you're wondering where to catch this adventurous story of a rare blue macaw named Blue, you will get all the answers here. Not only that, we are also going to take you behind the scenes. We will talk about the technical department that brought this film to life, the brilliant animation work, the sound design, the magical music that made the whole film dance, and how the creative team shaped the beautiful visuals of Rio's carnival, forests, and city life. I will tell you about the pre-production phase, where the film's story and world were planned, the actual filming process even though it's an animated movie, and the post-production stage where all the animation, sound, and editing came together to create this masterpiece. We'll also explore the budget of this film, how much was spent to create such a grand adventure, and whether the film was a box office hit or not. Did audiences around the world flock to theaters to see it? Did the film's earnings surprise everyone? We will discuss all of this in detail. Of course, we can't forget the story of the movie. I will tell you what this film is all about, what happens to Blue, how his life changes when he travels to Brazil, and the fun, thrilling moments that fill the movie from start to finish. I will also give you a quick review of the story, focusing on what makes it so enjoyable for both kids and adults. But that's not all. We'll dive into some amazing and lesser-known facts about the movie Rio. You will learn about the inspiration behind the story, some interesting choices made by the filmmakers, and the incredible effort it took to animate the birds and the city so perfectly. We'll also talk about the star cast who gave their voices to these wonderful characters, how well each actor performed, and which character they brought to life with their voice and energy. So friends, I request you to stay with me till the end of this video because there's so much to discover, and you wouldn't want to miss a single exciting detail. This is going to be a fun, colorful, and musical ride. So let's get started with today's video. The story of Rio kicks off with a breathtaking musical sequence that immediately pulls the audience into the lush, vibrant world of Brazil's rainforests. Birds of every color fill the skies, dancing and singing in perfect harmony, until the joyful rhythm is abruptly interrupted. Poachers storm into the jungle and snatch away crates of exotic birds, and right in the middle of the chaos is a small, wide-eyed blue macaw chick named Blue. This sudden capture tears Blue from his home and family and catapults him into an entirely different world, thousands of miles away, where he finds himself in the cold, snowy town of Moose Lake, Minnesota. It's here that Blue's life takes a cozy turn. He's discovered by a young girl named Linda, who immediately forms a close bond with him. The story gracefully skips forward several years, showing us how Blue grows up in a calm, protected life. Unlike most birds, Blue doesn't learn to fly. He's more comfortable with books, hot chocolate, and the safety of Linda's home. This sets up the heart of the story. Blue is a bird who doesn't know how to be a bird. He's happy in his little corner of the world, but it's a life where he's never truly spread his wings. The real spark of adventure is ignited when Tulio, a passionate ornithologist from Brazil, visits Linda's bookstore. Tulio reveals that Blue is one of the last surviving male Spix's macaws, and there is a female, Jewel, waiting in Rio de Janeiro. To save the species, Blue must travel to Brazil and meet her. This invitation is the classic call to adventure, pulling Blue out of his sheltered life and into the wild, unpredictable streets of Rio. Linda reluctantly agrees, setting the stage for Blue's transformation. Once in Rio, the story explodes with color, sound, and energy. Blue meets Jewel for the first time, but their meeting is anything but magical. Jewel is everything Blue isn't: fierce, free-spirited, and desperate to escape captivity. Blue, on the other hand, is terrified of everything outside his cage, and completely unaware of how to survive in the wild. Their differences are sharp, and their bickering creates instant comedic tension. But fate has other plans. The smugglers, led by the menacing and delightfully dramatic cockatoo Nigel, chain Blu and Jewel together, forcing them to escape as a team. This moment is a key turning point. Suddenly Blu's biggest fear, facing the world outside, is unavoidable. He must navigate the crowded streets, tangled alleyways, and dense rainforests of Rio, while shackled to a bird who can't wait to get as far away from him as possible. The story pushes them into a wild chase, filled with daring escapes, playful fights, and moments where Blu's nervous, clumsy energy constantly clashes with Jewel's bold determination. They are total opposites, and yet, the more time they spend together, the more they begin to trust one another. The plot moves with a steady, exciting rhythm, using a traditional linear structure, but layering it with lively detours and quirky characters. Blu and Jewel's journey introduces them to Rafael, a smooth-talking toucan who becomes their self-appointed love guru. Rafael brings humor and heart, helping Blu see that life is meant to be lived outside the cage. Along the way, they meet Nico and Pedro, two street-smart birds with a love for music and mischief, and Louise, a slobbery but lovable bulldog who adds even more chaos to their journey. Each supporting character nudges Blu toward his transformation, offering advice, comic relief, and a helping wing as the adventure intensifies. While Blu is running through the city with Jewel, Linda and Tulio are also racing against time to find him, adding another layer to the story. Their subplot brings a human warmth to the narrative, showing that love and friendship stretch across species. Linda's determination to find Blu balances the bird's story with her own journey of stepping out of her carefully ordered life. The emotional core of the story rests on Blu's inability to fly. It's more than just a physical limitation. It's a symbol of his fear, his self-doubt, and his belief that he can only be safe in his old, familiar life. Jewel constantly challenges this belief, pulling him toward freedom and adventure. As the story unfolds, the chase scenes grow more intense, the carnival celebrations grow wilder, and Blu's internal battle builds toward its most powerful moment. The final act is a crescendo of color, music, and high-stakes tension. Nigel's pursuit reaches its peak, Linda and Tulio race to save the birds, and Blu faces his ultimate challenge. When Jewel is in danger, Blu's love and courage finally overpower his fear. In a breathtaking moment, Blu takes the leap, literally, and discovers that he can fly after all. It's not a skill he suddenly masters, it's his emotional growth, his bravery, and his desire to save Jewel that unlock his true potential. The ending is packed with soaring joy and a celebration of freedom. The birds are safe, the villains are defeated, and the carnival pulses around them in a glorious, musical finale. Blu's journey from a flightless, fearful bird to a brave, soaring hero is complete, and every twist, chase, and dance along the way has brought him, and the audience, to this exhilarating point. The story of Rio is a vibrant adventure told with heart, humor, and non-stop energy. It flows like a carnival parade, sweeping the audience through lively streets, lush forests, and sky-high flights, while carefully building an emotional journey about courage, friendship, and the joy of breaking free from the cages we build around ourselves. The characters in Rio are not just colorful in appearance. They are rich, layered, and bubbling with life, each carrying their own quirks, fears, dreams, and emotional journeys. The film thrives because of how thoughtfully these characters are built and how beautifully they grow throughout the story. Right at the center is Blu, the rare blue macaw who immediately breaks the mold of what we expect from an animated hero. Blu isn't brave, he isn't adventurous, and he certainly isn't free-spirited. He's cautious to the point of being paralyzed by fear. He's a bird who never learned to fly, who sips hot chocolate, sorts books, and thrives on routine and safety. Blu is completely unaware of the world outside the comfort of Linda's bookstore, and he believes that staying in his perfectly arranged life is all he needs. But Blu's real problem is that he has no idea who he really is. He doesn't realize how much of his identity has been built around fear. When he's taken to Brazil, he's dropped into a world that refuses to let him hide, and this is where his character starts to come alive. Blu's journey is not about learning to fly in the physical sense. It's about breaking the mental cage he's trapped himself in. His reluctance to fly represents all the self-imposed limitations that hold him back. He doesn't believe he's capable, he doesn't trust himself, and every situation he faces in Rio chips away at these walls. His transformation is beautifully paced, with each obstacle forcing him to adapt, to take risks, and to realize that life is far bigger and messier than he ever allowed himself to imagine. On the other side of Blue's journey is Jewel, a wild and fiery macaw who has spent her life fighting for her freedom. She is Blue's complete opposite. Where Blue is cautious, Jewel is daring. Where Blue clings to security, Jewel dreams of the open skies. But Jewel's tough exterior hides her own emotional struggle. She's been alone for so long that she's convinced she doesn't need anyone. For Jewel, trusting others is the real risk. She resents Blue at first, seeing him as weak and helpless, but as their journey unfolds, she realizes that Blue's heart, patience, and loyalty are just as powerful as her wings. Jewel softens in the most natural way, not because her fiery spirit fades, but because she learns that being free doesn't mean shutting people out. Blue shows her that sometimes freedom is found in connection, in love, and in choosing to fly alongside someone else. Their relationship is the beating heart of the story, and it's never rushed. It moves from frustration to friendship to something deeply affectionate. Their growth happens side by side, chained together at first by force, and later by choice. The chemistry between them is built on playful teasing, honest mistakes, and moments where they learn to rely on each other's strengths. Blue's calm, bookish nature helps Jewel in tight situations, while Jewel's bold spirit pushes Blue to confront his fears. They teach each other, change each other, and bring out the best in each other, which gives the story its emotional weight. Linda, Blue's human best friend, also has her own beautifully crafted arc. Linda is just as hesitant to leave her safe life as Blue is. She's fiercely protective of Blue, and at the beginning, her entire world revolves around him. She believes keeping Blue close is what's best for both of them, but as she searches for him in Brazil, she's forced to see that Blue is meant for something bigger. Linda's growth mirrors Blue's. She must learn to let go, to trust that Blue can find his own place in the world. Her developing connection with Tulio, the passionate bird expert, adds charm and depth to her story. Tulio, with his big, awkward energy and his deep love for birds, is the one who encourages Linda to open her world. He is clumsy and excitable, but his genuine care for animals and his quirky humor make him endlessly likable. The supporting characters are not just there to fill space. They add real texture and momentum to Blue and Jewel's journey. Rafael, the street-smart toucan with a big heart, is a standout. He seems like the classic smooth operator, offering advice on love and life, but underneath his charm is a deeply committed family bird who adores his wife and children. His role is crucial because he nudges Blue toward bravery with warmth, humor, and brotherly encouragement. Rafael believes in Blue before Blue believes in himself. Nico and Pedro, the fast-talking bird duo, bring an irresistible energy to every scene they crash into. Their love for music, their street smarts, and their endless confidence give the story a playful edge. They aren't just comic relief. They're loyal friends who stick with Blue and Jewel when things get tough. Louise, the drooling bulldog, adds another layer of chaotic fun. His tough guy appearance completely crumbles when he shows his sweet, gentle nature, and his surprising hero moments make him instantly memorable. And then, swooping through it all is Nigel, the flamboyant cockatoo villain who steals every moment with his dramatic flair. Nigel isn't just evil. He's a performer who loves his own wickedness. His backstory as a washed-up TV bird fuels his bitterness, and his over-the-top personality makes him a villain who is as entertaining as he is dangerous. His obsession with revenge, and his relentless pursuit of Blue and Jewel inject real stakes into the story. Nigel's menacing, theatrical presence keeps the tension high, and the plot constantly moving forward. The brilliance of Rio lies in how all these character arcs are woven together so effortlessly. Everyone is changing, everyone is learning. Blue learns to trust his wings and his heart. Jewel learns that she doesn't have to face life alone. Linda learns to let go and embrace adventure. Tulio learns to open his heart. Even Rafael, Nico, Pedro, and Louise each play their parts in reminding the audience that life is meant to be lived fully, with friends, with love, and with the courage to leap into the unknown. What makes the character development in Rio so rich is that it never feels forced. The changes happen through laughter, mistakes, challenges, and unexpected friendships. Every argument, every chase, every quiet moment adds a layer to who these characters become by the end. It's a story where the characters don't just move through the world. The world moves through them, shaping them, stretching them, and ultimately helping them fly higher than they ever thought possible. The performances in Rio don't just fill the characters with voices. They electrify them with energy, texture, and soul, transforming a beautifully animated film into an experience that feels immediate, playful, and deeply heartfelt. Every actor in this cast seems to fully understand not just the lines they're delivering but the rhythm and emotional heartbeat of their character, which is why these performances leap off the screen with such effortless charm. The voices bring so much color and life that it often feels like the actors aren't performing at all. They are these birds, they are these humans, they are these personalities soaring through the story. Blu's performance is a brilliant study in controlled panic and nervous humor. His voice actor captures Blu's deep-rooted fear of the unknown with a tone that is always just a little on edge. Every stutter, every moment of hesitation, and every awkward pause feels completely natural, painting Blu as a bird who has spent his whole life safe inside his bubble and has no idea how to function in the wild. The beauty of this performance is that it never turns Blu into a caricature. His nervousness isn't exaggerated to the point of silliness. It feels honest. It feels like a real, relatable fear of stepping outside one's comfort zone. And as Blu grows braver throughout the film, his voice subtly shifts. His lines come out smoother, his words carry more confidence, and you can hear his transformation before you even see it. That's the kind of careful, thoughtful performance that gives the character layers. Jewel's voice performance is fiery and fiercely independent. Every word is packed with strength and determination. And yet there are careful cracks in her voice that reveal something softer underneath. The actress nails the balancing act of making Jewel sound untouchable on the surface, while hinting at her loneliness and vulnerability. Jewel's frustration with Blu is delivered with sharp, punchy lines that cut through his excuses, but as their relationship evolves, the sharpness softens. There's a slow, believable warmth that grows in her voice as she begins to trust Blu, and the gentle shift in her tone becomes the sound of her walls falling down. The chemistry between Blu and Jewel's performances is magical. Their arguments have a snappy, natural flow. Their banter feels unscripted, and their moments of connection are layered with just the right pauses, silences, and gentle shifts in delivery that make their bond feel real. Linda's performance is beautifully understated. She brings a soft, comforting energy to the film, sounding completely at home in her life with Blu. Her voice has a nurturing, slightly bookish warmth, which makes sense for a character who has spent years caring for a bird who is more like family than a pet. When Blu is taken from her, the panic and desperation in Linda's voice aren't played as over-the-top drama. They're quiet, focused, and deeply believable. Her determination to find Blu carries an honest emotional weight, and the sincerity in her voice adds a subtle, but powerful human thread to the story. Tullio's performance, on the other hand, is all joyful chaos. He is a walking ball of enthusiasm, and his voice actor leans into that with wild energy and rapid-fire delivery. His passion for birds practically bursts out of every sentence, and his comedic awkwardness is delivered with perfect timing. His interactions with Linda are sweet and clumsy in the best way, adding lightness and humor to the human storyline. Rafael, the street-smart toucan, is a scene stealer in every moment he appears. His voice actor gives him a smooth, confident swagger that makes him instantly likable. He sounds like the kind of friend who has seen everything, who can hustle his way through any situation, but there's also a gentle, fatherly wisdom that cuts through his jokes. Rafael's stories about his wife and kids aren't just throwaway lines. They're delivered with a warmth that makes you believe in his big-hearted nature. His voice shifts effortlessly between cool confidence and tender advice, making him the emotional guide Blu didn't know he needed. Nico and Pedro are like a walking, talking rhythm section, bouncing off each other with rapid dialogue and constant energy. Their performances are filled with street-smart charm and perfectly timed humor. They don't just deliver their lines, they practically sing them, wrapping their voices around the beats of the soundtrack, making every scene therein feel like a street party. Their chemistry is electric, and you can hear the years of friendship between them in the way they talk over each other, finish each other's sentences, and throw jokes back and forth without missing a beat. Luis, the lovable bulldog, is a powerhouse of comedic delivery. His deep, gravelly voice is such a perfect contrast to his soft-hearted, drooling, clumsy behavior. The actor gives Luis a lovable, slightly dopey quality that makes him instantly memorable. Every time Luis speaks, his voice oozes with sincerity, even when he's crashing through fences or accidentally spraying everyone with grease. He's big, he's loud, but his voice carries so much genuine affection that he feels like the gentle giant of the group. Nigel, the villainous cockatoo, delivers a performance that is nothing short of theatrical brilliance. His actor doesn't just play the bad guy. He relishes every moment of it. Nigel's voice is a wild mix of grand villainy, twisted humor, and pure performance art. Every word is delivered with dramatic flair. Every line is stretched and punctuated as if he's performing on stage. And his villain song is packed with deliciously exaggerated menace. Nigel's voice shifts from smooth and creepy to loud and bombastic in an instant, making him not just a threat but a constant source of entertainment. Even the minor characters and background voices are delivered with attention and care. The carnival announcers, the street vendors, the other birds, they all sound alive, part of the bustling world, adding layers of authenticity to the soundscape. The voice casting throughout Rio is so carefully chosen that even the smallest roles feel like they belong. The performances in Rio create a world that feels playful, vibrant, and emotionally rich. Every laugh, every stumble, every heartfelt confession is brought to life through performances that are filled with timing, heart, and personality. The actors don't just speak for their characters. They become their characters, giving the story its rhythm, its humor, and its emotional wings. The direction of Rio is a bright, rhythmic dance from start to finish, masterfully orchestrated by Carlos Saldanha, who doesn't just tell a story. He invites the audience to live inside it. His vision pulses with the energy, color, and musical heartbeat of Brazil, and he wastes no time immersing us in the vibrant world he's created. Right from the dazzling opening sequence, Saldanha fills the screen with swirling birds, lush treetops, and a sky bursting with life. He sets a tone that is joyful and kinetic, but cleverly leaves space for quieter, heartfelt moments to breathe. His direction balances the fun, high-energy spectacle with genuine emotional depth, keeping the mood playful without losing sight of the character's personal stakes. One of Saldanha's most striking choices is how he uses Rio de Janeiro itself as a living, breathing character. The city isn't just a backdrop, it's part of the story's rhythm. The streets pulse with music, the carnival explodes with color, and even the favelas and rainforests are captured with warmth and beauty. Saldanha's deep love for his hometown is visible in every frame. He directs the film like a visual love letter to Rio, allowing the culture, the music, and the people to shape the mood of every scene. His choice to fill the film with authentic Brazilian beats, street celebrations, and the festive madness of carnival gives Rio its unique heartbeat. The film never loses this lively pulse, even during tense chase sequences or emotional character moments. The energy is always bubbling just beneath the surface. The pacing is another sharp tool in Saldanha's hands. He keeps the story moving quickly, but he knows exactly when to slow things down to let the emotional beats land. Whether it's the frantic chase through the crowded streets or the quiet moment when Blu and Jewel share a view of the sunrise, the shifts in tempo feel natural and carefully placed. The balance between action, comedy, and tenderness keeps the audience fully engaged. Saldanha refuses to let any part of the story feel rushed or stretched. Every scene earns its time, and every moment pushes the characters or the plot forward. Saldanha's eye for shot composition in an animated world is a huge part of the film's charm. He frequently pulls the camera high above the city to showcase sweeping vistas of Rio's coastline, mountaintops, and the sprawling carnival streets. These wide, panoramic shots give the audience a sense of Blu's smallness in this big, overwhelming world, while also delivering breathtaking visuals that celebrate the city's beauty. In more intimate moments, Saldanha brings the camera in close to capture Blu's hesitant steps, Jewel's fierce glances, and the tiny details that bring the characters to life. The contrast between the wide, soaring shots and the close, tender frames creates a dynamic visual rhythm that perfectly matches the film's emotional beats. There's also a playful, almost musical rhythm to the way scenes are directed. Transitions are snappy, the timing of jokes is tight, and the movement of the characters often feels like choreography. Saldanha's direction leans into this, using the soundtrack not just as background music, but as a driving force that pushes the action forward. Whether it's the birds dancing in the treetops, the samba beats flowing through the carnival, or Nigel's dramatic villain number, the music and visuals are tightly woven under Saldanha's hand, creating scenes that feel like they're part of a grand musical performance. What's especially clever is how Saldanha mixes tension and humor without ever losing the film's joyful spirit. In chase scenes, the stakes are high, Blu and Jewel are in danger, but Saldanha layers these moments with playful obstacles, funny side characters, and vibrant settings that keep the tone light and accessible. Even the villain, Nigel, is directed with a flamboyant, almost theatrical flair that makes him threatening but endlessly entertaining. Saldanha doesn't lean into dark, gritty danger. Instead, he fills the film with lively, high-stakes mischief that keeps the audience smiling, even when the characters are in tight spots. His direction is also careful to give the human characters their own weight and presence in the story. Linda and Tullio aren't just side distractions. Saldanha shapes their journey with the same care he gives to Blu and Jewel. He crosscuts their search for the birds with Blu's adventure, weaving their stories together and making sure the audience is invested in both. The parallel journeys build tension and emotional payoff, all while maintaining the film's breezy, comedic tone. Throughout the film, Saldanha's choices create a world that feels alive, joyful, and deeply connected to its cultural roots. His passion shines through the animation, the musical choices, the pacing, and the framing of every scene. He directs Rio like it's a celebration of friendship, courage, and the beauty of letting go of fear. The film dances to his rhythm from the first frame to the last, each beat carefully placed to deliver both fun and heart. It's a ride where the mood, the visuals, and the energy are so tightly connected that it becomes impossible to separate the story from the joyful experience of simply watching it unfold. The cinematography in Rio is a vibrant, sweeping celebration of color, movement, and breathtaking visuals that make every frame feel alive. Even though the film is animated, the camera work is treated with the same care and imagination as a live-action blockbuster. The camera doesn't just follow the characters. It soars with them, races through the streets, dives between buildings, and glides over endless forests, creating an immersive, thrilling visual experience that captures the full energy of Rio de Janeiro. Right from the opening sequence, the cinematography establishes its playful, high-flying style. The camera floats through the treetops, spinning, twisting, and pulling the audience into the musical rhythm of the jungle. The angles are wide and sweeping, giving a panoramic view of the lush, sunlit rainforest and the sea of colorful birds that fill the skies. These opening shots immediately set the tone for the film's visual ambition, showing off the beauty of nature in a way that feels both grand and intimate. The lighting in these moments is soft, golden, and almost magical, casting the jungle in a warm, inviting glow that makes Blu's eventual loss of this world feel even more heartbreaking. When the story shifts to snowy Minnesota, the cinematography changes dramatically. The camera tightens, the color palette cools, and the lighting becomes crisp and clean, mirroring Blu's small, controlled world. Shots of the quiet bookstore, the cozy apartment, and the icy streets are carefully framed to feel safe but confined. The cinematography cleverly uses this contrast to visually separate Blu's past from his future, preparing the audience for the explosion of color and movement that will arrive in Rio. As soon as Blu and Linda land in Brazil, the cinematography shifts gears again, bursting with life. The city of Rio is captured in wide, sweeping shots that showcase its iconic beaches, towering mountains, and sprawling carnival streets. The camera dances through the vibrant settings, often diving through crowds, whipping past samba dancers, and gliding over the sparkling coastline. The framing is dynamic and always on the move, pulling the audience into the celebration, and giving the sense that the city itself is alive and constantly in motion. One of the film's most visually striking choices is how it captures flight. The camera treats the sky like a stage, sweeping alongside Blu, Jewel, and other birds as they dive, twirl, and race through the air. The cinematography makes full use of three-dimensional space, letting the audience feel the thrill of soaring over the city, skimming just above rooftops, and plummeting through narrow alleyways. The flight sequences are shot from bold cinematic angles, sometimes following closely behind the birds in a thrilling chase, other times pulling back to reveal vast, breathtaking landscapes. The camera movements during these moments create an exhilarating sense of speed and freedom, making every leap into the sky feel like an adventure. The lighting throughout the film adds an extra layer of mood and energy. During the carnival scenes, the lighting is dazzling, neon blues, fiery reds, and sparkling golds light up the streets and fill the night sky. The shadows flicker with the movement of dancers and floats, creating a constant sense of motion, even when the characters pause to catch their breath. In the quieter moments, like Blu and Jewel watching the sunrise, the cinematography softens, the colors mellow, and the lighting wraps the characters in a gentle, golden hue. These shifts in lighting subtly guide the emotional flow of the story, letting the audience feel when the mood is shifting from excitement to tenderness. Nigel's scenes are another showcase of clever visual storytelling. The cinematography tightens around him, often casting him in sharp, dramatic lighting that highlights his sinister presence. Shadows and close-up angles emphasize his menace, but even in these darker moments, the film keeps a playful edge by framing his dramatic antics with exaggerated movements and bold, theatrical lighting. The balance between light and dark, humor and tension, is carefully crafted through the camera's gaze. During the chase scenes, the cinematography explodes with creativity. The camera ducks under fruit stands, weaves between carnival floats, and schemes the surface of rivers, giving the action a thrilling, ground-level perspective. The angles keep shifting quickly but smoothly, building tension and excitement while always keeping the audience locked onto the character's path. The fast camera work matches the frantic pace of the chase, but never becomes disorienting. Every twist and turn is clear, sharp, and bursting with energy. The film also finds beauty in the small moments. The cinematography slows down to savor the quiet exchanges between Blu and Jewel, often framing them against sweeping natural backdrops or placing them in the soft glow of early morning light. These carefully composed shots give space for the characters' emotions to settle and breathe, adding depth to their connection without needing extra words. Even the final scenes, set against the grand backdrop of Carnival's grand finale, are a visual spectacle. The framing of the parade, the glowing lights, the rain of confetti, and the towering floats create a hypnotic, joyous canvas that celebrates the story's climax with every ounce of visual energy the film has to offer. The camera doesn't just observe the parade, it moves with it, dances through it, and lets the audience experience the full thrill of the moment. Throughout Rio, the cinematography plays a key role in building the world's atmosphere, amplifying tension, capturing beauty, and deepening emotion. Every camera movement, every lighting choice, every carefully framed shot works in perfect harmony with the film's energy and heart. It's a visual roller coaster that knows exactly when to speed up, when to glide, and when to pause and let the view speak for itself. The editing and pacing of Rio are like the pulse of a samba drum, lively, rhythmic, and always keeping the story moving in perfect time. From the very first scene, the film wastes no time pulling the audience into its world, and the editing plays a huge part in making that introduction feel fresh and exciting. The opening sequence flows effortlessly from wide shots of the jungle to quick, playful cuts of birds dancing and swooping, and even when the story suddenly shifts to snowy Minnesota, the transition is sharp but smooth, giving the film an immediate sense of momentum that rarely lets up. What makes the editing shine is how it knows exactly when to speed things up and when to slow things down. The film is filled with fast-paced chase sequences that demand snappy, energetic cuts, and the editors handle these moments with precision. Whether Blu and Jewel are dodging street vendors in the middle of Rio or scrambling through narrow alleyways, the editing keeps the action crisp and easy to follow. The shots change quickly, but never so fast that the audience feels lost. The rhythm is just right, keeping hearts racing but eyes locked onto the characters. The film moves with the speed of the story's excitement, and the editing makes sure that each high-energy scene feels like it's happening in real time, with nothing dragging behind. But Rio isn't just about fast cuts and thrilling chases. The editors also know when to hit the brakes and give the story room to breathe. Moments like Blu and Jewel watching the sunrise or sharing a quiet conversation are given the perfect amount of space. The pacing slows, the cuts stretch out, and the film allows the characters' emotions to fully settle. These softer moments are crucial because they let the audience connect deeply with the characters. The editing trusts these scenes to stand on their own without rushing to the next joke or the next beat of action. The musical sequences are where the editing really dances. The timing of the cuts syncs beautifully with the rhythm of the soundtrack. When the birds are singing, the scenes feel choreographed down to the smallest wing flap. The flow of the visuals rides the tempo of the music, creating seamless transitions that feel like part of the performance. It's like the film itself is dancing, shifting smoothly between wide, sweeping shots and tight, quick close-ups that bring the music to life. Even when the story switches between different plotlines, following Blu and Jewel's wild escape, cutting to Linda and Tullio's frantic search, and jumping back to Nigel's schemes, the editing stitches these separate threads together without losing focus. The cross-cutting is balanced, keeping all the storylines connected and moving at the same speed. There's no awkward lag where one plotline feels slower than another. The rhythm between the bird's adventure and the human's journey is carefully tuned, so that each part adds to the tension, excitement, and emotional build-up without stepping on the other's toes. One of the most impressive things about the pacing is how the film handles its humor. Comedic timing is everything in a story like Rio, and the editors hit the punchlines with precision. The quick reaction cuts, the perfectly timed pauses, and the sharp visual gags all land, because the editing knows exactly how long to hold a shot and exactly when to move on. The film keeps the laughs coming without overstaying any joke or undercutting the next scene's energy. The final act is where the pacing really kicks into overdrive. As the carnival setting brings everything to a fever pitch, the editing here becomes even tighter, the cuts more rapid, matching the intensity of the climax. But even in this high-speed finale, the story never feels rushed. Every beat has its place, every moment lands, and the rhythm keeps driving forward to Blu's emotional breakthrough. The editors know that the audience has been waiting for this moment when Blu finally takes flight, and the pacing leads us there with a steady build-up that makes his leap feel earned and powerful. There's also a wonderful use of visual rhythm in the transitions between scenes. Sometimes the film uses sweeping camera moves to glide from one setting to another, and other times it uses sharp, musical cuts that snap the audience into the next moment. The transitions are smooth, playful, and perfectly in step with the film's upbeat mood. They prevent any dragging or awkward pauses, making the whole experience feel like one continuous, flowing journey. Throughout the film, the editing maintains an energetic, fluid pace that keeps viewers hooked without feeling overwhelmed. It balances adventure, comedy, music, and emotion with skillful timing, giving the story space to grow while making sure there's never a dull moment. The rhythm of the film mirrors the pulse of Rio itself, joyful, fast, sometimes chaotic, but always in perfect sync with the heart of the story. The soundtrack and score of Rio are not just background decorations, they are the heartbeat of the entire film. The music wraps itself around every scene, pumping life into the story, driving the pace, and turning even the simplest moments into vibrant celebrations. From the very first notes in the opening sequence, the music drops the audience straight into the sun-soaked energy of Brazil, filling the air with samba rhythms, soaring melodies, and the irresistible pulse of the streets. The sound is big, bold, and unashamedly joyful, setting a tone that sticks with the film from start to finish. The soundtrack doesn't just sit on top of the visuals, it dances with them. Each song feels like it's stitched into the DNA of the story, flowing perfectly with the characters' movements and the rhythm of the city. The musical numbers explode with flavor and excitement, blending traditional Brazilian beats with catchy pop hooks that make them unforgettable. Songs like Real and Rio don't just introduce the setting. They drop the audience right into the carnival spirit, as if they've been swept into a street parade with drums pounding and birds swooping overhead. The music layers create a soundscape that feels alive, textured, and filled with the heartbeat of Rio itself. The songs in Rio have a way of capturing each moment's mood with pinpoint precision. In the wild, chase-heavy scenes, the percussion slams with energy, matching every twist and turn as Blu and Jewel dodge their pursuers. In the calmer, emotional beats, the music softens into breezy guitar melodies, subtle drums, and flowing harmonies that bring warmth to the quieter moments. The soundtrack never overpowers the story, it lifts it, carrying the audience through the highs and lows with perfect timing. Even when the music steps into the foreground, It feels earned, like a character in the story that's been waiting for its big moment. There's a playful energy running through the entire score. Even the villain, Nigel, gets his own unforgettable musical showcase, and the way his song swings between creepy and comical adds layers to his character without dragging the mood into dark territory. Nigel's villain song becomes one of the film's most memorable pieces, not just because of its catchy rhythm, but because it gives the audience a chance to enjoy his theatrical, larger-than-life personality. The music in these scenes knows exactly when to lean into the fun, keeping the tone light even when the stakes are high. One of the most charming elements of the soundtrack is the recurring musical motifs that pop up throughout the film. The themes that accompany Blue's journey, the melodies tied to Rio's streets, and the rhythms that swirl through carnival scenes weave in and out of the score like familiar friends. These musical callbacks subtly remind the audience of where the story began, where the characters have been, and how far they've come. The recurring sounds make the whole film feel like one connected musical ride, where every note builds on the one before it. The score's ability to blend big, show-stopping numbers with smaller, emotional cues is what gives the film its special touch. When Blue struggles with his fear of flying, the music doesn't push too hard. It steps back, letting the sound become gentle, almost hesitant, mirroring Blue's own uncertainty. The quiet plucks of strings, soft beats, and light wind instruments give these scenes a tender, personal feel. The use of musical restraint in these moments makes Blue's eventual triumph feel even more powerful, because when he finally takes flight, the music rises with him, bursting into a soaring, full-bodied celebration that feels like the payoff the audience has been waiting for. The sound design also plays an important role in balancing the score with moments of silence. The filmmakers know when to let the music drop away, allowing the sounds of flapping wings, the buzz of the city, or the quiet whisper of the rainforest to fill the space. These pauses create breathing room, letting the emotion settle without being smothered by constant music. It's a careful dance between sound and silence, and the balance makes the musical peaks feel even more exhilarating. What makes the Rio soundtrack truly special is that it never feels like a separate layer. The songs, the score, and the sound design are all woven tightly into the story's fabric. They enhance every scene without ever distracting from it. The music is as much a part of the character's world as the colorful feathers, the sunlit beaches, and the swirling carnival streets. It's the pulse of the film, the invisible thread that ties together the laughter, the tension, the chases, and the moments when Blue finally spreads his wings. The soundtrack carries the spirit of Rio in every beat, every drum, every playful note, and it turns the film into not just a story you watch but a story you feel in your bones. Rio may be wrapped in the feathers of a bright, musical adventure, but underneath all the fun, the film gently weaves in several meaningful themes that give the story its emotional depth. At the very heart of it is the theme of stepping out of your comfort zone. Blue's entire journey is a story about fear. Fear of flying, fear of the unknown, fear of taking risks. He starts out clinging tightly to the world he knows, his cozy bookstore in snowy Minnesota, where everything is predictable, safe, and controlled. But life pulls him, literally and emotionally, into a wild, unpredictable place that challenges everything he's comfortable with. Blue's struggle isn't just about learning to fly. It's about learning to let go of the cage he's built around himself. The film beautifully ties his emotional growth to his physical journey, and the message is clear. Real freedom comes not from avoiding risk, but from embracing it, even when you're terrified. This theme of self-discovery and facing fears lands naturally throughout the film, never feeling forced, because it grows right alongside Blue's character in a way that feels honest and earned. The film also plays with the idea of connection and belonging. Blue starts his story believing he is the last of his kind, isolated by circumstance and by choice. His relationship with Linda is safe, familiar, but it's also a bubble that keeps him separate from his own species, his own potential. As Blue meets Jewel, Rafael, Nico, Pedro, and the colorful world of Rio, he's slowly pulled out of isolation and into community. The film celebrates the joy and the messiness of making connections. Whether it's Blue finding his flock or Linda finding unexpected friendships in Brazil, there's a quiet but powerful message about finding your place in the world, and understanding that belonging doesn't always mean staying where you started. It sometimes means flying towards something new. Rio gently touches on environmental awareness without ever feeling like it's preaching. The film's backdrop is a world where exotic birds are smuggled, caged, and sold, a real threat that many species face. The movie uses this to create danger and stakes for Blu and Jewel, but cleverly avoids turning the story into a heavy-handed lecture. Instead, the threat is folded naturally into the narrative. Blu's cage isn't just metal bars, it's the fear that holds him back. Jewel's resistance isn't just about survival, it's about protecting freedom. The danger of poaching hangs over the story, but the film focuses on the personal impact of captivity and the beauty of wild, untamed life. It invites audiences to care about these birds, to cheer for their freedom, and maybe to leave the theater with a little more awareness about the importance of protecting wildlife. The theme of love, both romantic and platonic, threads through the entire film. Blu's growing bond with Jewel is about more than just attraction. It's about trust, about learning to lean on someone else, about realizing that sometimes, flying isn't something you can figure out alone. Their relationship grows in a way that feels playful, frustrating, and eventually deeply tender. Meanwhile, Blu's bond with Linda shows a different kind of love. The selfless love that knows when to hold on, and when to let go. Linda's journey is all about realizing that her love for Blu doesn't mean keeping him in a cage, but supporting him as he finds his own sky. The film celebrates both kinds of love without favoring one over the other, giving the story a sweet, layered emotional core. The power of friendship is another theme that beats through Rio like a steady drum. Rafael, Nico, Pedro, Luis, each of these characters helps Blu in ways he never expected. The film shows that sometimes, the family you choose, the friends you stumble across in the middle of chaotic carnivals and daring escapes, can be just as important as the one you were born into. These friendships are built on trust, on shared adventures, and on moments of pure loyalty, like when Louise risks everything to help the birds. The story celebrates these bonds without making grand speeches about them. The loyalty is shown in actions, in the risks they take for each other, and in the quiet understanding that they're in this together. There's also a subtle but thoughtful exploration of freedom. Jewel's entire mission is to live free, and her fiery resistance to captivity contrasts perfectly with Blu's initial comfort in being caged. The film explores different kinds of cages, physical cages, emotional cages, cages built by fear. And it carefully leads Blu to understand that even though safety feels comfortable, it can also be a trap. Jewel's freedom is about soaring through the skies, but for Blu, freedom is about choosing to take that first leap, despite not knowing what will happen. The film celebrates the idea that true freedom comes from taking risks, trusting your instincts, and sometimes letting go of what you think you need. One of the film's more playful but still meaningful messages is the importance of embracing differences. Blu and Jewel couldn't be more opposite. He's cautious, she's bold. But the story shows that their differences don't weaken them, they make them stronger together. Rafael, Nico, Pedro, and Luis all come from different backgrounds, yet their shared goal unites them. The film subtly champions the idea that diverse friendships, unexpected partnerships, and clashing personalities can lead to the most rewarding adventures. The beauty of Rio is that it never hammers these themes into the audience. It lets them unfold naturally, hiding deeper meaning beneath the humor, the action, and the dazzling spectacle. The film speaks to the quiet courage of facing your fears, the wild joy of flying free, and the simple, universal desire to belong. These messages stay with you long after the carnival music fades because they are woven seamlessly into every moment of the journey. The visual effects and CGI in Rio are a dazzling spectacle that don't just decorate the film. They completely define its world, its rhythm, and its joy. Since Rio is a fully computer-animated film, there are no practical effects in the traditional sense, but what the animation team achieves through digital artistry feels so vivid, so textured, and so alive that the audience is swept straight into the pulse of the story without ever questioning the reality of this animated universe. The CGI isn't just impressive, it's the lifeblood of the film's visual storytelling. One of the most striking achievements is how the animation brings the city of Rio de Janeiro to life. The CGI builds a sprawling, vibrant version of Rio that is both stylized and remarkably detailed. The beaches shimmer with sunlight, the streets hum with energy, and the towering favelas spill down the hillsides with a chaotic beauty that feels completely organic. The carnival scenes are where the visual effects truly explode. The colors pop with an intensity that floods the screen. The crowds pulse like waves of confetti and feathers, and the massive floats glide through the streets with a grandiosity that feels larger than life. The way the CGI captures the scale of the carnival without losing the intricate details. The feathers on costumes, the glitter in the air, the endless movement of dancers, is breathtaking. It's a constant dance of color and light that pulls the audience into the celebration, as if they're floating right alongside the characters. The jungle sequences offer a different kind of visual magic. The lushness of the rainforest is rendered with layers upon layers of green, sunlight piercing through the treetops, and tiny fluttering details that make the environment feel alive. The CGI doesn't just create backgrounds, it breathes life into them. The leaves sway with the breeze, dust particles catch the sunlight, and the water shimmers with soft, natural reflections. It's not just about making things look good. It's about creating a world that feels dynamic, where every corner is buzzing with movement. But the real showcase of the visual effects is in the way the birds are animated. The CGI captures the texture of feathers, the subtle shifts in the wings, the way light plays across their bodies as they fly. Blue's cautious, clumsy flapping is animated with so much personality that you can practically feel his fear through his awkward wing beats. Jewel's graceful, confident soaring contrasts beautifully, and the detail in the flight sequences makes every dive, every loop, every sweeping glide feel like it's happening in a real sky. The physics of flight are treated with both accuracy and a little bit of creative exaggeration to keep the movement playful and cinematic. The flight scenes are choreographed like dances, with the visual effects team using swooping camera angles and seamless motion to make these sequences exhilarating and smooth. The CGI never feels stiff or mechanical. It flows, it moves, it breathes. The character animation is another layer where the visual effects shine. The facial expressions are rich with emotion. Blue's wide-eyed panic, Jewel's stubborn frowns, Rafael's sly grins. All of these moments are packed with subtle, expressive details that make the characters feel alive beyond their voice performances. The CGI brings out tiny movements in their eyes, their beaks, their posture, adding humor and heart to every scene. Even side characters, like Louise the bulldog, are animated with such thoughtful physicality that their movements tell their story just as much as their words do. Louise's heavy, slobbering run, his wobbly skids, and his big-hearted clumsiness are all made vivid by the careful, expressive work of the animation team. In the high-energy chase scenes, the CGI shows off its flexibility. The streets of Rio become a playground of tight corners, rolling fruit carts, crashing fences, and twisting alleyways, and the visual effects weave the characters through these chaotic landscapes with thrilling speed. The transitions from wide cityscapes to narrow, character-focused shots are handled with seamless precision, making the action flow without disorienting the audience. The CGI never feels like it's showing off for the sake of spectacle. It always serves the momentum of the story. The comedic physical gags also rely heavily on the smooth execution of visual effects. Whether it's a runaway trolley, a tangle of birds falling out of the sky, or Louise's over-the-top stunts, the CGI nails the timing and elasticity of these moments. The exaggerated movements, the snap of a wing getting stuck, the bounce of a character springing back to their feet. It's all animated with a perfect balance of realism and cartoon energy that keeps the humor sharp and visually delightful. The film also uses CGI to craft some beautiful, quieter moments. The soft morning light as Blue and Jewel watch the sunrise is gently textured, with the CGI capturing the way the sky slowly shifts from deep purple to warm gold. The reflections on the water, the rustling leaves, the gentle sway of hanging vines. All these small touches create an atmosphere that feels peaceful and immersive, showing that the visual effects aren't just about speed and color, but also about stillness and beauty. Throughout the film, the CGI never feels like a distraction. The effects blend so seamlessly with the world that they become invisible in the best way. They are the world. The textures, the lighting, the movement, the complexity of the backgrounds. All of it works together to create an animated environment that feels tangible, playful, and bursting with life. The visual effects in Rio don't just support the story. They lift it, energize it, and fill it with so much visual joy that every scene feels like a feast for the eyes. The set design and locations in Rio are more than just colorful backdrops. They are pulsing, breathing characters that shape the entire rhythm and energy of the film. Every corner of this world feels handcrafted with vibrant intention, pulling the audience deep into a version of Rio de Janeiro that is both fantastical and strikingly authentic. The city's bold architecture, the sprawling favelas, the bustling marketplaces, and the sweeping beaches all feel alive, saturated with life, culture, and chaos in the best possible way. The production design doesn't just present Rio. It celebrates it, letting the city's heart beat loudly in every scene. The way the film contrasts locations is beautifully executed. Blue's original home in snowy Minnesota is quiet, cozy, and a little too perfectly organized. The set design here is filled with soft, pale colors, heavy jackets, and an almost clinical neatness. His world is boxed in, shelves of books, rows of birdseed, piles of predictable routine. It's a visual cage, even though it's warm and safe. The filmmakers packed these early scenes with small visual details. A steaming cup of cocoa, thick woolen scarves, the snow softly falling outside, that immediately give the sense of a sheltered life. Every prop in this space tells us that Blue has never needed to spread his wings. Then when Blue is yanked out of that world and dropped into Rio, the explosion of color is immediate and overwhelming. The city's design is wild, layered, and rich with detail. The buildings aren't straight and perfect. They lean into each other, covered with tangled wires, peeling paint, and lively street art. The markets are overflowing with fruit stalls, flapping tarps, crates stacked to the sky, and flocks of pigeons that scatter as Blue stumbles through. Even the sidewalks pulse with patterns, from the black and white mosaics of Copacabana Beach to the zigzagging alleys of the hillside neighborhoods. The locations feel chaotic but never messy. They are packed with life. Dogs barking in doorways, kids playing soccer, fireworks bursting in the sky. The design layers make these streets feel real and wonderfully untamed, the perfect contrast to Blue's tidy former life. The jungle sequences introduce yet another layer to the set design. Here, the spaces open up, the canopies stretch high overhead, and the film trades in city sounds for the rustle of leaves, the call of distant birds, and the trickle of streams. The jungle isn't just a generic green space. It's a playground of hidden caves, winding roots, and sunlight breaking through the treetops. The vines, the moss, the splash of waterfalls. Every element is designed to create both beauty and danger. The jungle is a place where Blue must learn to trust the world around him. And the set design reflects this shift perfectly. It's wild, yes, but also inviting, full of surprises and pockets of peace. The carnival is where the production design hits its most spectacular note. The floats, the costumes, the feathered headdresses, the waves of streamers, and the sparkling streets all explode in a perfect storm of color and sound. The designers built a carnival that feels endless, alive at every angle, layered with dancers, fireworks, and towering decorations that seem to stretch into the sky. The props, the drums, the confetti cannons, the elaborate parade stages, are all integrated into the story's biggest moments, not just there for spectacle, but deeply tied to the action and Blue's emotional breakthroughs. The carnival feels immersive, overwhelming in the best way, and the set design ensures that every frame is dripping with movement and color. Smaller, more intimate locations are just as carefully constructed. Linda and Tulio's research lab is cluttered with bird cages, mismatched paperwork, hanging maps, and a lovely mess that speaks to their obsession and passion for their work. Louise's garage is another standout location, greasy, full of makeshift repairs, hanging tools, and scraps of metal piled around. But it's also filled with warmth and charm. The set pieces tell us everything we need to know about Louise's rough-around-the-edges personality and his loyalty to his friends. Even Nigel's hideouts, whether perched on rusted scaffolding or hiding in shadowy storage rooms, are detailed with a darker, more angular edge that contrasts the otherwise bright, open settings, giving him a space that feels cramped and villainous. The film's attention to detail and props is equally impressive. Blue's travel cage isn't just a random box, it's a constant visual reminder of his limitations. The props used during the chases, the fruit carts, the swinging signs, the tangle of carnival floats, all play into the physical comedy and the rhythm of the story. The filmmakers use these objects not just for world building, but as key tools in shaping the action and humor. The rooftops of Rio are another visual playground the designers used to their full advantage. These layered, uneven spaces create tension and thrilling movement during chase sequences, offering dizzying heights and sharp drops that Blue must navigate despite his fear of flying. The rooftops are splashed with colorful laundry lines, scattered antennas, and potted plants that give the scenes texture and life. The beauty of Rio's production design is that the settings are never static. Every location feels like it's in motion. Flags fluttering, birds swooping, people dancing in the distance. The world feels lived in and alive, filled with small, carefully chosen details that make the film's version of Rio pulse with authenticity and energy. The city isn't just a backdrop. It's a living stage that shapes the characters, challenges them, and invites them to discover something bigger than themselves. The set design, the props, and the locations in Rio turn the film into a visual celebration that invites the audience to not just watch, but to feel like they've stepped into a place that is endlessly alive, endlessly colorful, and bursting with life at every turn. The dialogue and script in Rio sparkle with energy, rhythm, and a playfulness that perfectly matches the film's colorful world and fast-paced adventure. Every line feels tailored to the characters' personalities, giving them unique voices that bounce off each other with natural chemistry and razor-sharp timing. The script is alive with wit, humor, and moments of surprising tenderness, all while keeping the tone light, breezy, and irresistibly fun. Right from the start, Blue's dialogue sets the tone for who he is. His words are cautious, overly polite, and filled with adorable panic. He over-explains, he second-guesses, he stumbles through social situations, and all of it is written with such a keen ear for rhythm that Blue's nervous ramblings become one of the film's most charming comedic threads. His lines often loop in on themselves, packed with unnecessary details, and it makes every one of his awkward attempts to sound brave feel both hilarious and heartbreakingly real. The dialogue perfectly captures his internal struggle without needing to spell it out. It's in the way he babbles through his fears that the audience gets to know his heart. Jewel, on the other hand, is written with sharp, clipped lines that cut straight to the point. Her dialogue is a blast of confidence, laced with sarcasm and quick, snappy retorts that slice through Blue's endless hesitations. The script plays beautifully with their differences. Blue's overthought sentences crashing into Jewel's impatient one-liners create a constant rhythm of friction and comedy. Their back-and-forth exchanges sparkle with that irresistible push-pull energy, where every word is a mini tug-of-war between fear and freedom, between safety and risk. The humor in the script is woven through every conversation, but it never feels forced or shoehorned in. Rafael's dialogue is packed with street-smart wisdom delivered with effortless cool. His lines glide with the kind of charm that makes even his simplest advice sound like a golden rule. His fatherly stories about his family are laced with humor, but the script also gives him these soft, honest moments where his love for his family peeks through. Nico and Pedro's lines are a rapid-fire blend of playful teasing and rhythmic wordplay. Their conversations snap like drumbeats, bouncing from topic to topic with the kind of free-flowing banter that feels completely unscripted. Their musical way of speaking isn't just a gimmick, it's a clever reflection of their rhythm-obsessed personalities. Nigel's dialogue is where the script lets loose in the best possible way. His lines are a delicious mix of melodrama and menace, dripping with theatrical flair. Nigel doesn't just talk, he performs. His words twist and curl around threats, songs, and wickedly funny observations. His villain song is packed with clever, darkly comedic lines that cement him as one of the most entertaining characters in the film. The writers gave Nigel some of the sharpest, most over-the-top pieces of dialogue, and the result is a villain who is both genuinely threatening and laugh-out-loud funny. The script knows exactly when to slow down and deliver moments of genuine emotional weight. Blue and Linda's early conversations are soft, familiar, and written with a warmth that makes their bond completely believable. Their affection is built not through grand speeches, but through the small, caring exchanges that feel like the product of years spent together. The quietest lines often carry the most emotional punch, like when Linda gently encourages Blue to try something new, or when Rafael quietly talks about the beauty of freedom and family. These subtle, understated lines cut through the noise and remind the audience that beneath all the action, the story has heart. The script also plays cleverly with cultural layers and setting-specific humor, without falling into stereotypes. The carnival announcers, the street musicians, the crowded markets. All of these moments are written with an ear for how people actually speak in these bustling environments. The background conversations, the offhand remarks, the quick asides from minor characters all add texture and flavor to the world, making it feel genuinely lived in. One of the script's greatest strengths is its rhythm. The conversations flow with the energy of the city itself, sometimes rapid and chaotic, sometimes soft and meandering, but always alive. The film is constantly moving, and the dialogue matches that pace. Even the comedic setups and payoffs are perfectly timed, like Louise's hilarious misunderstanding about being a ferocious guard dog or Blue's constant misreading of jungle survival. The punchlines hit because the script allows the characters' personalities to shape the humor instead of relying on cheap gags. There are standout lines peppered throughout the film that stick with you, not because they're trying to sound profound, but because they feel so effortlessly right for the moment. Blue's stammered declarations of bravery, Jewel's sharp warnings about trusting humans, Rafael's laid-back pearls of wisdom, Nigel's gloriously overcooked monologues. These lines become part of the film's rhythm and identity. The beauty of Rio's script is that it never tries too hard to impress. It lets the humor breathe, it lets the emotion simmer, and it trusts the characters to carry the weight of each scene with words that feel honest, funny, and sometimes unexpectedly moving. The dialogue isn't just there to push the story forward. It's there to make the characters live, to make their world sing, and to make the audience feel like they've been dropped into the middle of a vibrant, chaotic, and completely irresistible conversation that they never want to leave. Rio dances confidently within the conventions of animated family adventure films, but adds enough fresh flavor, personality, and cultural sparkle to keep it from feeling like a recycled story. It takes the familiar structure of a reluctant hero on a journey of self-discovery, mixes in a classic odd couple dynamic, and wraps it all in a rhythm that feels distinctly its own. The film embraces the high-energy pacing, vibrant visuals, and comedic beats that audiences expect from this genre, but it manages to dodge the weight of predictability by setting its story against the backdrop of Rio de Janeiro's carnival pulse, giving the film an atmosphere that feels uniquely alive. It doesn't shy away from the tropes of the animated adventure. There's the nervous, out-of-place protagonist, the tough but lovable partner, the quirky sidekicks, the menacing villain, and the loyal human friend on a desperate mission. These pieces are familiar, but Rio rearranges them in a way that makes the journey feel fresh. The fish-out-of-water setup with Blue is classic, but what makes it pop here is how deeply his fear is tied to his very identity as a bird who cannot fly. That simple twist takes what could have been a generic, learn to be brave, arc and turns it into something more personal and layered. The film plays with this fear throughout, using it for both humor and tension, and it never lets Blue's struggle feel like just another item on a predictable character checklist. The odd couple formula between Blue and Jewel is another staple of the genre, but their dynamic in Rio is executed with such sharp timing and chemistry that it never feels stale. Instead of falling into the easy pattern of instant attraction, the script lets them genuinely clash, argue, and frustrate each other before any warmth starts to sneak in. Their differences are not just about personality. They're about worldview, survival, and freedom. And the way the film lets those conflicts play out gives their relationship a bite that keeps the audience hooked. When it comes to balancing action, suspense, humor, and heart, Rio hits a rhythm that feels playful and expertly timed. The action scenes are bursting with energy, daring escapes, wild chases through crowded markets, rooftop flights, and chaotic carnival parades, but they're always laced with humor. Blue's clumsiness in action sequences is not just a visual gag. It's a key part of his character's arc. The comedy doesn't feel like an afterthought layered on top. It is woven into the bones of the action, with physical humor and clever one-liners keeping the stakes fun even in the middle of danger. The suspense is light and breezy, perfect for its family-friendly tone, but the film knows how to keep the tension playful without ever sliding into true darkness. The humor is smart, lively, and often rooted in character rather than cheap jokes. Whether it's Blue overthinking every decision, Jewel's exasperation at his nervous habits, Rafael's smooth advice that sometimes backfires, or Louise the bulldog's over-the-top attempts to be helpful, the comedy flows naturally from the way these characters move and interact. There's plenty of fast-paced banter, slapstick, and situational comedy, but the film also leaves space for more subtle humor to shine through. The kind that comes from mismatched personalities and cultural confusion. The film's emotional beats are handled with a gentle touch. Rio knows when to let the energy settle, when to pull back from the carnival fireworks and let Blue have a quiet, vulnerable moment. The emotional weight isn't heavy-handed. It's woven into the story through Blue's growing courage, Linda's selfless love, and Jewel's fierce belief in freedom. The film touches on themes of fear, belonging, and letting go, but it always does so with a light, accessible tone that invites the audience in rather than weighing them down. Where Rio introduces something fresh is in its setting and cultural texture. So many animated adventures stick to imaginary kingdoms or generic urban cities, but Rio plunges straight into the heart of Brazil, and the film lets that decision shape its entire identity. The samba rhythms, the colorful street scenes, the sprawling favelas, the lively street parties, the intricate carnival parades. These aren't just painted backdrops, they are the energy that drives the film's style and pacing. The soundtrack, the visual choices, and even the minor characters all lean into this cultural celebration, giving the film a voice and a flavor that sets it apart from its genre cousins. The film does play with a few familiar beats that are hard to escape. The villain's minions are the typical bumbling henchmen. The chase sequences follow the expected beats of near capture and last-second escapes, and some of the sidekick humor leans on familiar rhythms seen in other family films. But Rio delivers these moments with such energy and affection that they never feel lazy or tired. Instead, they feel like part of a well-rehearsed dance where the audience knows the steps but loves them anyway. Nigel as the villain is a particularly fun genre twist. Instead of the dark, brooding antagonist, Nigel is a flamboyant, over-the-top performer who relishes his evilness with a theatrical flair. His grand entrances, his dramatic speeches, and his playful villain song flip the typical villain mold into something joyfully ridiculous, giving the genre a refreshing jolt of chaotic energy. The film's musical integration is another point where Rio shakes up the genre's usual formula. It doesn't follow the classic Disney style where characters break into songs that directly push the story forward. Instead, the music in Rio is woven into the world itself, through street parties, radio hits, and natural bursts of rhythm that feel like they belong to the character's environment rather than stopping the film for a staged number. The music drives the pacing, but it always feels like it belongs to the streets of Rio, rather than existing outside of them. In its genre execution, Rio confidently leans into familiar structures, but dresses them up in feathers, fireworks, and Brazilian flair that give the film its own heartbeat. It balances the thrills, the laughs, the sweet moments, and the chaos in a way that keeps everything moving like one big, joyful parade, inviting the audience to join the ride and soak up every second of the adventure. Rio doesn't march in waving banners of political commentary, but beneath its feathered, music-filled surface, the film subtly weaves in threads of social and cultural relevance that touch on real-world issues without ever dragging the tone into a heavy-handed space. It's not trying to deliver a grand lecture, but it uses the backdrop of Rio de Janeiro, the wild bird trade, and the idea of captivity to offer a light but meaningful commentary on environmental concerns, cultural identity, and the tension between freedom and human interference. At the center of Rio's social heartbeat is the issue of animal trafficking, specifically the illegal trade of exotic birds. It's not plastered in neon signs, but it's the driving force of the story. The reason Blu and Jewel are in danger, the reason they're chained together, and the reason their species is facing extinction. The film doesn't need to drown the audience in statistics or turn the villain into a spokesman for greed and cruelty. Instead, it keeps the focus tight on how this crime impacts individual animals, letting us feel the injustice through Blu and Jewel's eyes. The cages aren't just props, they're a constant, looming reminder of how fragile these creatures are in the face of human greed. By showing the contrast between Blu's life as a pampered pet and Jewel's life as a wild bird desperate for freedom, the film quietly explores the difference between loving animals as possessions and respecting them as part of the natural world. What's clever about Rio is that it doesn't demonize humans as a whole. Linda's character is a beautiful counterpoint. She genuinely loves Blu, not as an accessory or a trophy, but as family. The film carefully balances this dynamic, showing that love and captivity aren't always separate, but there's a line where care can become control. Blue's journey is about understanding that love doesn't have to mean holding on too tightly, and Linda's journey is about realizing that sometimes, setting someone free is the greatest act of love. It's a soft but powerful message about respecting the natural instincts of creatures, even when it's hard to let go. The film also plays with cultural commentary, but it does so in a celebratory, immersive way. Rio de Janeiro is not just a backdrop, it's a fully realized character, and the film doesn't flatten the culture into tired stereotypes. Instead, it bursts with life, music, dance, and local flavor. From the vibrant street parades to the packed marketplaces, from the beachfront soccer games to the graffiti-splashed alleyways, the film paints Rio as a chaotic, joyful, and richly layered city. The culture isn't just sprinkled in for decoration. It shapes the rhythm of the story, the humor, and the characters' way of speaking and moving. The samba beats pulse through the streets, the Portuguese language seeps naturally into background conversations, and the film doesn't shy away from showing both the glossy postcards and the gritty, tangled beauty of the city's favelas. One of the subtle but important social threads is the way the film handles the concept of freedom. Blue begins his story in a cage of comfort, a cozy, climate-controlled life where he is safe, but completely disconnected from his nature. Jewel, on the other hand, fights fiercely for wild freedom, for the right to soar, to survive on her own terms. Their conflicting views invite a quiet reflection on how people, like birds, sometimes build their own cages. Cages of fear, cages of routine, cages of self-imposed limits. The film doesn't shout this message, but it weaves it carefully into Blue's journey. It's a story about learning to trust the unknown, to embrace uncertainty, and to let instinct guide you beyond the walls you've built. Rio also plays gently with the theme of globalization. Blue is a bird born in Brazil, but raised in America. He represents a creature caught between two worlds, a living symbol of how species and cultures get displaced, adopted, and reshaped in a globalized society. His journey is one of cultural reconnection, rediscovering his roots, finding his place in a city that is his by birth but foreign by experience. This subtle commentary on cultural displacement is wrapped in humor and light adventure, but it adds a layer of meaning to Blue's identity crisis. The film touches briefly on the careless ways humans impact the natural world. Nigel, the villain, is not just a random bad guy. He's a former star of the pet trade, now cast aside, bitter, and broken. His backstory hints at the way animals are commodified, used for entertainment, and abandoned when they no longer serve a purpose. It's a sharp but understated critique of how animals can be exploited and discarded in the name of human amusement. Even the way the film handles the bustling, overpopulated energy of Rio's city life speaks to a cultural commentary about resilience and adaptation. The streets are crowded, the buildings are stacked in wild patterns, the carnival is a non-stop wave of sound and color. And yet, there's joy in the chaos. The city's energy is not presented as a problem to fix. It's presented as something beautiful, something alive. The film seems to be saying that life's unpredictability, the collisions of people and cultures, the noise and movement, all of it is part of what makes the world thrilling and worth exploring. The cultural celebration in Rio never feels forced or tacked on. The music, the slang, the carnival spirit, it all flows naturally through the story, giving the film a pulse that could only belong to this city, to these people, to this rhythm. The film doesn't try to flatten Rio into something universally palatable. It lets the city be itself, bold, complex, and unapologetically vibrant. In its light, feather-filled way, Rio invites audiences to think about freedom, belonging, cultural roots, and the delicate relationship between humans and the natural world. It handles these themes with a soft hand, wrapping them in humor, adventure, and rhythm, but they linger underneath the fun, adding just enough depth to give the story weight without ever slowing down the party. Rio knows exactly how to keep its audience hooked, spinning a lively mix of humor, music, action, and heartfelt moments that pull viewers right into the center of its vibrant, feather-filled world. It's a film that makes people lean forward with excitement, laugh out loud at the chaos, and feel a genuine emotional tug during the quieter, more tender beats. It's the kind of story that doesn't just play out on screen. It dances in the audience's imagination, inviting them to join the ride, hum along with the music, and root fiercely for a nervous little bird who's terrified of flying. The film is packed with moments that spark immediate emotional reactions. The comedy is rapid, snappy, and irresistible. Blue's panicked attempts to navigate jungle life, his terrified flapping, his awkward stumbles, and his cluelessness about romance are written and performed in a way that lands every single time. The audience can't help but laugh at his discomfort, but at the same time, his wide-eyed charm makes people want to see him succeed. His dynamic with Jewel, filled with snarky exchanges and slow-burning chemistry, keeps viewers engaged, waiting for that moment when their stubborn walls finally break down. The humor doesn't just come from slapstick either. It bubbles out of clever wordplay, mismatched friendships, and fast-paced banter that makes the characters feel alive. Beyond the laughs, Rio delivers chase scenes and action moments that pulse with excitement. The tangled jungle escapes, the mad dashes through packed street markets, the wild rooftop chases, and the electrifying carnival finale keep the audience on the edge of their seats. These sequences are choreographed with speed and energy, but always leave room for comedic twists that keep the mood light even when the stakes feel high. The film has a thrilling rhythm that never lets the audience feel like they're stuck in one place for too long. The pacing zips forward, but leaves just enough room for the audience to catch their breath before diving into the next burst of adventure. One of the film's strongest emotional hooks is its ability to deliver surprisingly touching moments without slowing down the fun. Blue's relationship with Linda is quietly powerful. Their bond is so genuine, built through small, caring interactions, that when the story pulls them apart, the emotional punch lands hard. The scene where Blue watches Linda walk away, unsure if he'll ever see her again, is layered with just the right amount of sadness and hope. These moments sneak up on the audience, creating emotional depth that lingers even as the film bounces back into the carnival's high-energy rhythms. Blue's personal struggle resonates deeply with many viewers. His fear of flying isn't just a funny character quirk. It's a metaphor for anyone who's ever been afraid to step outside their comfort zone. The audience is not just watching a bird flap around in panic. They're watching a character fight against self-doubt, take risks, and eventually embrace the unknown. That journey hits home because it taps into something universal: the fear of falling, of failing, of not being enough. When Blue finally takes flight, it's not just a visual triumph. It's a payoff that makes audiences cheer because they've been on that journey with him from the start. The film also hooks viewers through its cultural vibrancy. The colors, the music, the festival spirit of Rio. It all feels like an open invitation to experience something joyful and alive. The samba beats aren't just background noise. They pulse through the audience, pulling them into the rhythm of the story. The music sticks in the head long after the credits roll, making the film one that people want to revisit just to feel that energy again. It's the kind of movie that calls for repeat viewings, not because the plot is complicated, but because the world it creates is so much fun to live in. Rio sparks conversation in a quiet, natural way. It invites families to talk about the importance of letting go, about respecting animals, about the meaning of real freedom. Kids walk away laughing about Blue's antics, but the story plants little seeds that might grow into deeper questions later. Why can't Blue stay with Linda? Why are birds in cages? Why does freedom matter so much? These aren't hammered into the story. They're gently woven through it, giving the film a richness that leaves a subtle impression. The villain, Nigel, also leaves audiences buzzing. His theatrically wicked lines, his flamboyant villain song, and his wild-eyed intensity make him one of those rare bad guys who's genuinely fun to watch. His presence gives the film a layer of playful menace that keeps viewers guessing. What will he do next, and how ridiculously dramatic will it be? His antics make him a standout in the film's lineup of memorable characters, giving the audience another reason to revisit the story just to enjoy his over-the-top performance. The carnival sequence is a highlight that practically demands to be rewatched. It's a visual and emotional crescendo that delivers excitement, danger, humor, and catharsis all in one breathless rush. The audience is pulled into the parade's roar, caught up in the flying feathers, the pounding drums, the urgent chase, and the joyful, chaotic energy that defines the film's spirit. It's the kind of sequence that sticks in the mind, the kind that people replay just to feel the thrill all over again. Rio knows how to make the audience care. It layers humor, action, and heartfelt emotion in a way that keeps people laughing, cheering, and maybe even tearing up when Blue finally spreads his wings. The film invites viewers to come back not because they missed something, but because they want to feel that rhythm again, dance through those streets again, and root for Blu and Jewel all over again. It leaves the kind of joyful imprint that makes people hit replay, share it with friends, and hum the songs long after the screen fades to black. When stacking Rio against other animated adventure films of its era, it carves out a space that feels distinctly its own, yet it comfortably sits among a family of movies that follow the joyful, action-packed, animal-led journey formula. Films like Madagascar, Finding Nemo, The Lion King, and Happy Feet all swim in the same pond, where animals take center stage, life lessons are folded inside the fun, and breathtaking visuals whisk audiences off to exotic locations. But Rio manages to bring a few fresh feathers to the table that give it a unique pulse compared to its animated cousins. Take Madagascar for example. Both films play with the idea of animals pulled from their familiar environments and thrown into the chaos of the wild. Madagascar leans heavily into zany humor and slapstick madness with a talking zoo crew, while Rio gives us a more personal, almost intimate character journey through Blu's quiet panic and gradual transformation. Blu isn't just trying to survive a new world. He's on a deeper mission to find his identity, to figure out who he is without the walls of his cage. Where Madagascar dives headfirst into comedic anarchy, Rio moves with more heart, and a stronger emotional tether to its setting and cultural roots. Comparing Rio to Finding Nemo brings out some interesting parallels. Both films revolve around animals out of their comfort zones, traversing dangerous territory to reunite with someone they love. Yet Finding Nemo bathes in the deep ocean of parental anxiety, and leans into themes of protection and trust, while Rio flips that dynamic and focuses on personal freedom, fear of flying, and the need to break free from self-imposed cages. Nemo's story is about being found, Blu's is about learning to let go. Rio doesn't dive as deeply into emotional currents as Finding Nemo, but it offers something equally valuable: a cultural explosion of sound, color, and rhythm that invites the audience to fall in love with the city just as much as its characters. When stacked against Happy Feet, another bird-led adventure, the comparison sharpens. Both films feature outcast birds who can't do what birds are supposed to do. Mumble can't sing, Blu can't fly. Both stories center on learning to embrace individuality and rewriting the rules of their worlds. But Happy Feet dives headlong into environmental activism and global warming messages with a heavier tone, while Rio stays light on its feet, sprinkling its messages about animal trafficking and freedom like colorful confetti, never stopping the party to deliver a lecture. Rio feels more like a celebration of culture than a warning about global crisis, and that's where it finds its own rhythm. If we step into the director Carlos Saldanha's own filmography, Rio marks a noticeable shift from his work on the Ice Age franchise. The Ice Age films build their worlds around prehistoric landscapes and an ensemble of quirky, mismatched characters on survival quests. While both Ice Age and Rio share Saldanha's flair for kinetic energy, physical comedy, and big-hearted friendships, Rio feels far more personal and culturally rooted. Saldanha, who was born in Rio de Janeiro, pours a layer of love and authenticity into this film that doesn't exist in the more fantasy-driven settings of Ice Age. Rio trades the icy blues and grays of mammoth trails for the blazing reds, greens, and yellows of carnival streets, and that swap is more than visual, it's emotional. There's a deep, affectionate pulse in Rio that feels like the director's own love letter to his hometown, something that lifts the film beyond the typical studio adventure formula. When compared to other city-centric animated films like Ratatouille or Zootopia, Rio stands out in how directly and unapologetically it immerses the viewer in real cultural textures. Ratatouille romanticizes Paris with soft lighting and elegant cuisine. Zootopia builds an entirely fictional metropolis designed for animals, but Rio drops you straight into a living, breathing version of Rio de Janeiro with its real sounds, real slang, real music, and real energy. It's not a sanitized postcard. It's a city pulsing with life, movement, and celebration. This authenticity gives Rio a vibrant edge that makes its world feel not just animated but alive. In terms of formula, Rio certainly plays within the well-worn paths of buddy comedies, underdog stories, and redemption arcs. It doesn't pretend to reinvent the animated wheel. There's the reluctant hero, the no-nonsense partner, the funny sidekicks, the flamboyant villain, the race against time structure, and the big, visually dazzling finale. But Rio colors that formula with such joyful, musical flair that it never feels like a tired retread. Instead of leaning on tired pop culture gags or borrowing humor from unrelated trends, the film finds its comedy and heart inside its own world, inside its own culture. Where some of its contemporaries were starting to load up on cross-generational jokes and sneaky references to pull in adult audiences, Rio keeps its humor broad and character-driven. It trusts that the energy, the music, and the adventure are enough to bring everyone along for the ride, and that confidence shines through. When placed side by side with its sequel Rio 2, the original stands out as the more tightly crafted, emotionally resonant story. The sequel pushes bigger set pieces and introduces a wider cast, but the first Rio captures the perfect blend of humor, heart, and cultural rhythm that made audiences fall in love with Blue's world in the first place. In the wide landscape of animated family adventures, Rio earns its spot by taking the familiar and painting it in bold, joyful colors. It flies alongside the big names like Madagascar, Finding Nemo, Happy Feet, and Ice Age, but it brings its own music, its own city, and its own samba-infused soul to the party. It feels like the movie that invites you not just to watch the story, but to dance in it, laugh with it, and maybe, just maybe, spread your own wings along the way. Rio is a film bursting with color, music, and movement, but beneath its joyful surface, it hides subtle layers of symbolism and clever metaphors that quietly deepen the story. These aren't the heavy, puzzle-like symbols that demand deep decoding. They are playful, feather-light touches that enrich the film if you know where to look. At the center of it all, flight becomes the film's most powerful metaphor. Blue's fear of flying isn't just a quirky character trait, it's a symbol of his inner cage. Even though he's not behind bars at Linda's bookstore, he's trapped by his own fears, his routines, his dependence on others, and his belief that he's somehow incomplete. Flying represents freedom, self-trust, and taking risks. The entire film is built around the gradual unlocking of that fear. Every failed attempt, every panicked moment, every time Blue falls short of taking off, it's a visual marker of how tightly he's chained to his own comfort zone. When he finally flies, it's not just a physical triumph. It's the moment his metaphorical cage shatters. The chain that physically binds Blue and Jewel together for most of the movie is another smart symbol. On the surface, it's a comedic inconvenience that sets up the buddy dynamic, but it's also a visual cue for how Blue is tethered to his past, to his fears, and to his reluctance to embrace the wild, unpredictable life Jewel represents. The chain forces them to move together, clash, stumble, and eventually sync their rhythms. It's a brilliant way of showing how sometimes connection feels like restriction until you learn to move in step with someone else. The moment the chain finally comes off is perfectly timed. It marks not just their physical freedom, but the start of Blue's emotional freedom as well. Birdcages appear throughout the film, sometimes in the background, sometimes front and center, and each time they carry weight. Whether it's Blue's cozy cage in Linda's home, the rusty cages in the smuggler's hideout, or the parade floats shaped like cages, they all echo the same question. What does it mean to be free? Blue's cage is filled with comfort, but it's still a cage. Jewel's entire mission is to break away from those cages, to stay wild and untamed. The cages become visual reminders that captivity isn't always about metal bars. It can be about fear, dependency, or emotional walls. Nigel, the villain, is a walking metaphor for what happens when animals are pulled out of their natural worlds and thrown into human spaces where they don't belong. His past life as a pampered TV star left him broken and bitter, and now he prowls as a mangled, angry predator. His ragged feathers and aggressive behavior are physical reflections of how captivity and exploitation have twisted him. He becomes the embodiment of the worst-case scenario of human interference. What happens when the wild is bent so far it snaps back in rage? The setting of Rio de Janeiro itself serves as a living, breathing symbol of freedom, chaos, and vibrancy. The city's carnival is the ultimate expression of breaking free from social constraints. During carnival, people wear masks, dance in the streets, and dissolve the usual boundaries of everyday life. The parade sequences are drenched in symbols of liberation. Explosions of feathers, flying confetti, giant floats with birds spreading their wings. It's not just a party, it's the perfect stage for Blue's transformation. When he finally takes flight during carnival, the visual language couldn't be clearer. He's joining the celebration of life without limits. Even the environmental layering in the film plays with subtle metaphor. The contrast between the concrete jungle of the city and the lush green wilds of the rainforest symbolizes Blue's internal tug-of-war. The city represents safety, predictability, and structure. It's where Blue knows who he is. The rainforest is untamed, risky, and filled with the unknown. Blue's journey from the city streets to the jungle and back again mirrors his emotional journey from clinging to what's familiar to soaring into his own potential. The recurring image of the broken chain, the open cages, and the endless sky keep circling through the story like musical motifs. Every time Blue hesitates, the camera pulls back to show him dwarfed by open skies he's too afraid to cross. It's a simple but striking visual metaphor that doesn't need to be explained, it's felt. Even Louise the bulldog is a small but playful metaphor tucked inside the humor. He's a big, drooling, seemingly intimidating creature who turns out to be the gentlest, most loyal ally. He represents the idea that appearances are often deceptive, and the things we fear can turn out to be our biggest helpers. His massive size and soft heart quietly echo the film's theme that what's inside matters far more than what the outside suggests. There's also subtle symbolism in the way music flows through the film. Samba is not just a soundtrack, it's a pulse that represents life, freedom, and cultural identity. The rhythm is constant, unstoppable, and wild. Blue, with his careful, structured life, is out of sync with that rhythm at first. But as he grows braver, the music feels more and more like it belongs to him. The beat never changes, but Blue's ability to move with it does, symbolizing his gradual embrace of spontaneity and self-belief. Even the recurring gag of Blue's obsession with schedules, routines, and his travel bag full of essential items stands as a metaphor for how we cling to the illusion of control. Blue's bag is his emotional crutch. It's filled with things that make him feel safe, but none of them actually help him survive in the jungle. The bag represents his old life, his comfort bubble. And when he finally leaves it behind, it signals that he no longer needs those artificial safety nets. Throughout Rio, the film scatters these little visual metaphors and symbolic moments like hidden gems, always present but never screaming for attention. They deepen the story, layer extra meaning beneath the surface fun, and give the film a richness that rewards viewers who come back for a second look. It's not just a story about a bird who learns to fly. It's a story about shedding cages, breaking chains, syncing with life's rhythms, and trusting that sometimes, the scariest leaps lead to the most beautiful flights. Rio is not just a standalone burst of color and music. It also became the foundation for its own mini-franchise, and its place in the timeline of animated films offers a fascinating snapshot of where family animation was heading at the time. Released in 2011, Rio arrived when the landscape was thick with ensemble comedies like Madagascar, Shrek, and Ice Age, films that thrived on quirky sidekicks, fast-paced gags, and adventurous road trips. But Rio carved its own space by leaning heavily into cultural specificity and music, offering something that felt more like a celebration than just another cross-country chase. As the starting point of the Rio series, the film introduced characters and relationships that would carry over into Rio 2. While the sequel expanded the world, added new characters, and explored the Amazon, the original Rio is where the heart of the story beats strongest. It lays the emotional foundation. Blue's transformation, his bond with Jewel, and his connection with Linda. These elements remain central to the franchise's identity. Without Blue's initial journey from the safety of his cage to the chaotic streets of Rio de Janeiro, there would be no reason to follow him deeper into the wild in later installments. The first film is all about personal growth, Blue's battle with fear, Jewel's fight for freedom, and Linda's selfless love. It sets the stage for broader environmental themes explored later, but here, the focus is tightly woven around character and cultural immersion. The film also fits into the historical context of director Carlos Saldanha's career, as he stepped out from the shadow of the Ice Age franchise to create something deeply personal. Unlike Ice Age, which is set in a prehistoric, fictional world, Rio is rooted in the real streets, music, and culture of Brazil, his birthplace. This shift from fantasy landscapes to real-world locations was part of a growing trend in animation around that time. Studios were beginning to lean into cultural authenticity, giving audiences more geographically grounded adventures that celebrated specific traditions, sounds, and communities. Rio arrived before this wave fully took off, making it something of a trendsetter. It walked so that later culturally rich animated hits like Coco, Moana, and Encanto could run. What's notable is that Rio doesn't anchor itself to any specific historical event. It's not a period piece, and it doesn't attempt to reenact a slice of Brazilian history. But it does tap into a real-world issue that was, and still is, globally relevant: the illegal exotic bird trade. The film doesn't bombard audiences with a documentary-style lesson, but its entire narrative is built around this urgent environmental problem. Blue is not just any bird. He's a rare species, a symbol of the very real threat of extinction driven by human greed and smuggling. In this way, the film quietly situates itself in an ongoing, real-world conversation about wildlife conservation. The setting of Rio de Janeiro's carnival gives the film a timeless, celebratory backdrop, but it also cleverly ties the story to a very specific cultural moment that is universally recognized. Carnival is not just a colorful party, it's a living tradition that pulses through Brazilian culture. By making the climax of the film take place during Carnival, the story locks itself into a moment that feels authentic and globally identifiable, even for viewers who've never set foot in Brazil. As a franchise starter, Rio brings a more personal and emotionally driven touch than some of its animated peers. Where franchises like Shrek leaned heavily into pop culture references, and Ice Age thrived on prehistoric comedy chaos, Rio builds its momentum through character depth, cultural color, and a soundtrack that pulses with the rhythms of samba and bossa nova. It doesn't just aim to entertain. It invites the audience into a world that feels lived in, real, and brimming with local energy. The sequel, Rio 2, expands the franchise's scope by introducing Blu and Jewel's children and shifting the focus to the Amazon rainforest, diving deeper into environmental themes and new family dynamics. But it is the original Rio that feels the most grounded in its emotional core. The sequel plays bigger but arguably loses some of the tight, intimate charm that made the first film resonate so strongly. The franchise as a whole carries the spirit of cultural celebration and animal conservation, but Rio is the piece that gives that spirit its first breath. In the wider historical context of animated films, Rio sits at a fascinating crossroads. It arrived in the post-**Shrek**, post-**Finding Nemo** era, when studios were refining the formula for animated blockbusters, and it contributed to the growing shift toward films that celebrated specific cultures with authentic voices and soundtracks. It didn't revolutionize animation techniques, but it helped open the door for stories that stepped outside the usual fairy tale castles and fantasy jungles. Rio finds its historical importance not in being the most technologically advanced film, or the most narratively groundbreaking, but in the way it invited audiences into a real city, introduced them to a real rhythm, and made that world sing. It showed that a story set in a specific culture could have universal appeal, that a Brazilian carnival could feel as magical as any enchanted kingdom, and that an awkward, flightless bird could stand alongside lions, penguins, and woolly mammoths as a hero worth following. Its legacy within its franchise and within the broader timeline of animation is tied to its cultural heartbeat, its celebration of joy, and its ability to make audiences fall in love with the city as much as its characters. Rio strutted onto the animation scene with a solid budget behind its dazzling feathers, a budget that hovered around $90 million. This wasn't small change in the world of animated features, but it also wasn't the towering blockbuster investment that some of its contemporaries like Tangled or Toy Story 3 commanded, with budgets pushing past the $200 million mark. Yet, every dollar spent on Rio is proudly visible on screen. The film bursts with intricate animation, fluid character movement, meticulously detailed backgrounds, and a carnival explosion of color that practically dances off the frame. The sweeping aerial shots of Rio de Janeiro, the glittering samba parades, the chaotic jungle chases, and the crowded, sun-soaked marketplaces show that the production team didn't cut corners. The movie feels rich, vibrant, and full of life, with each frame packed with energy and texture. What's impressive is how Rio manages to feel like a grand visual spectacle without overindulging in unnecessary visual clutter. The budget wasn't spent just on showy effects. It was carefully funneled into building a world that feels tangible and alive. The feathers on each bird ripple and shift with striking realism, The layers of the rainforest feel lush and deep, and the crowds during Carnival pulse with believable movement. This is where the production quality shines. Those millions went into creating an animated world that feels both authentic and joyfully heightened. When Rio hit theaters, it didn't just glide by, it soared. The film raked in a worldwide box office haul of around $484 million. That's more than 5 times its production budget, which catapulted it into the clear success category, not just in terms of breaking even, but becoming a profitable, franchise-launching hit. The film's strong global performance was no accident. Its universal themes, irresistible music, and bright, family-friendly vibe made it a favorite not just in North America, but across international markets, especially in Latin America where the cultural heartbeat of the film resonated deeply. The decision to root the film in Brazilian culture, and to highlight the energy of Rio de Janeiro clearly paid off. It gave the film a unique identity in a crowded market where many animated features were starting to blur together with similar-looking fantasy worlds and fairy tale kingdoms. Marketing played a crucial role in Rio's success story. The campaign was vibrant, musical, and cleverly built around the film's greatest assets, its infectious soundtrack and its lovable, oddball hero. Trailers pumped out the carnival energy, posters splashed characters against breathtaking cityscapes, and the catchy songs hooked audiences even before they stepped into the cinema. The marketing leaned hard into the idea that Rio wasn't just another animal adventure. It was a party, a celebration, a feel-good ride with rhythm in its wings. Audience reception amplified the film's momentum. Families flocked to theaters, drawn by the promise of bright visuals, humor, and an uplifting story. Word of mouth was kind to Rio, with many viewers praising its animation quality, the irresistible charm of Blue, and the unforgettable musical sequences. The energy of the film translated well across age groups, offering something for kids and enough cultural sparkle for adults to enjoy without feeling sidelined. The financial success of Rio was so strong that it paved the way for Rio 2, merchandise lines, video games, and even theme park attractions. The studio didn't just see a one-time hit, they saw a growing franchise with feathers to spare. Rio became one of Blue Sky Studios' flagship properties, standing alongside the juggernaut Ice Age series and proving that a film could thrive without leaning on existing franchises or classic fairy tales. Even looking at the timing of Rio's release, the film benefited from a strategic window. It arrived in spring, avoiding the crowded summer blockbuster season where competition from superhero giants and mega-sequels could have clipped its wings. This gave Rio room to breathe, to claim the family market early, and to build a strong, steady box office performance over weeks rather than relying on a huge opening weekend spike. What's interesting is that Rio didn't just succeed because of flashy visuals or a celebrity-stacked voice cast. It succeeded because it created a full sensory experience that audiences wanted to step into. The budget supported the film's grand vision, but the real magic came from how every dollar was used to pull viewers into a world that buzzed with life, color, and rhythm. The balance between financial investment and artistic payoff hit a sweet spot, turning Rio into not just a profitable movie, but a memorable one that left audiences dancing out of theaters and humming its signature tunes long after the credits rolled. Here's where you can watch Rio, 2011, and how to get the best experience. First off, it's no longer in theaters, so your best bets are streaming services, digital rental, or purchase. Streaming subscription. Rio is currently available on Max, formerly HBO Max. That's the top choice for consistent access and high-definition streaming if supported. Rental or purchase. If you don't have Max, you can rent or buy a digital copy in HD on platforms like Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Microsoft Store, Google Play, and Fandango at home. Rentals are typically around standard pricing, and purchases are available at reasonable rates. Physical copy. For collectors or bonus content lovers, the Blu-ray or DVD Party Edition includes extras like a digital copy, behind-the-scenes features, and 3D in some packages. Availability in Islamabad and Pakistan. Streaming availability can vary by region. Rio isn't available on Netflix in Pakistan. It is accessible on Max, and rentals are available globally via Prime Video, Apple TV, and Google Play at standard international prices. Buying locally might also include Hindi-dubbed options from local distributors. Check your nearest DVD outlets or e-commerce platforms for dubbed versions. Best way to watch for full impact. The top-tier viewing experience is on Max, which supports HD and often comes with good sound quality. This lets you fully enjoy the vibrant carnival scenes, lush jungle, and dazzling animation. If Max isn't accessible, renting or buying an HD digital copy is a great alternative. Just avoid standard definition if you want crisp imagery and immersive sound. Planning a samba night? Make it a festive watch. Sync up your home speakers, dim the lights, and let the samba beats carry you through the adventure. The music and visuals are meant to be experienced together, so give Rio the spotlight it deserves. Whether you go with Max, rental, or physical media, there are plenty of ways to dive into the vibrant, musical world of Rio and enjoy every colorful moment.